Dear students, welcome you all to session 13 video of the chapter Cost Sheet, Cost and Management Accounting, third semester BCom. Here, this is relating to a preparation of cost sheet. The question goes like this. Raw material consumed 70,000, carriage inwards 2,000, factory rent 2,400, bad debts 440, printing and stationery 620, legal expenses 350, carriage outwards 1,540, indirect materials 560, power 4,600, depreciation on furniture 160, postage expenses 465, repairs of plant and machinery 1,200, salesman expenses 3,400, advertising 500, direct wages 85,000, general manager's salary 36,000, factory manager's salary 18,000, depreciation on plant and machinery 1,240, audit fees 350, agents commission 5,750, warehouse rent 1,800, traveling expenses 1,400, donations 150, interest on capital 2,000. So these are the expenses incurred by a firm during a period. Now you are asked to prepare a cost sheet. So first and foremost, you need to find out whether the number of units produced are given. So here, in this case, we do not have any information about the number of units produced, and we do not have information about the opening stock or closing stock of materials or work in progress or finished goods. Such information is not given. So we have to prepare a cost sheet without the number of units produced. So we need not find out the per unit cost. Now, each item we need to understand as to whether it is can be categorized as factory overheads or office overheads or selling overheads. So to begin with, we start with the direct materials, direct wages and direct expenses. That's our prime cost. So we have raw materials. So raw materials consumed. Carriage inwards means the expenses incurred in bringing these raw materials that has to be added to the raw materials. Factory rent, which it is the rent which is paid to the factory building. So it is factory overheads. Bad debts 440. So as per cost accounting standard 3, bad debts and reserve for bad debts do not form part of the cost sheet. That means we will not be recording it in our cost sheet. Printing and stationery, these are the expenses incurred in the office. So it comes under office overheads. Legal expenses, the expenses incurred for payment of fees to the advocate regarding matters relating to law and all. So legal expenses, it comes under office overheads. Carriage outwards, which means the expenses incurred in taking the goods out of our factory. So it is as a part of selling our goods. So selling and distribution overheads. Indirect materials, the indirect materials, it is the materials which are used in the factory. Power, again a factory overheads. Depreciation on furniture, so it is office overhead. Postage expenses, it is relating to the office overheads. Repairs of plant and machinery, so see plant and machinery, they are located in the factory, so these are factory overheads. Salesman expenses are selling and distribution overhead. Advertising, again selling and distribution overheads. Direct wages, so direct wages comes under our calculation of prime cost. General manager's salary, general manager for the overall administration, so it comes under your administration overheads, that is office and administration overheads. Factory manager's salary, again factory overheads. Depreciation on plant and machinery, so as I explained, the same repairs of plant and machinery, here also plant and machinery are located in the factory, so these are factory overheads. Audit fees, that is the fees incurred by the company in checking the books of account, so it is office overheads. Agents commission, now these agents commission are for selling the goods, so it comes under selling and distribution overheads. Warehouse rent, Now we need to store our finished goods. So this warehouse is meant for storing the finished goods. So warehouse rent comes under selling and distribution expenses. Traveling expenses, we assume that these are the expenses of the salesman or say marketing sales manager. So these traveling expenses come under selling and distribution overheads. Donations. Donations do not form part of the production process. It's actually the way we spend our profit, isn't it? So donations do not come under your cost sheet. Interest on capital, again, it's a financial item which will not be recorded in the cost sheet. Now we'll see how a cost sheet is prepared based on the above information given. Now to begin with, the you can see the columns, cost sheet for the year ended, the period if it is given, and if the number of units are given, units produced will have to. Then the particulars, units, total cost and cost per unit. These are the columns which are there in a cost sheet. Now to start with, we have direct materials. So raw materials consumed 70,000 at carriage inwards 2,000. If there is any other items like transfer from other department, or if there is a return, or if there is closing stock or opening stock, all these have to be adjusted here. So in this case, we have only carriage inwards 2,000 rupees. So 72,000 we have written here. We are not in a position to find out the cost per unit. Next comes the direct wages, 85,000. Direct expenses are not there. So the total of these two, direct materials and direct wages, prime cost 1,57,000. Add factory overheads. So all the expenses which are incurred in the factory for the purpose of production. So we need to look into. So first one is covered, that is raw material. Second is carriage inwards. Factory rent is there. Factory rent. Then you can see indirect materials. Okay, power, then repairs of plant and machinery, then comes factory manager's salary, then again comes depreciation on plant and machinery. Further, when you go further down, you can see we have audit fees, agents commission, warehouse rent. All these are relating to either office or selling overheads, not factory. So whatever items relating to the factory we have written here, and the total of that, it is 28,000. So when we add the factory overheads to the prime cost, we get the factory cost. So if there is work in progress, opening balance as well as closing balance, we'll have to adjust here. That is, add opening stock of work in progress less closing stock of work in progress. 1,85,000 is the factory cost. Then afterwards, what we'll have to do is we have to add the office overheads now. So when office overheads, what are these? What are office overheads? All the cost, that is indirect materials, indirect labor and indirect expenses incurred in the office for the purpose of the general administration. So again we look into the question. Raw materials anyway covered, factory inwards, carriage inwards, factory rent, bad debts we are not going to write, printing and stationery, these are office overheads. Legal expenses, again office overheads. Then indirect power, these depreciation on furniture, again this is office overheads. Postage expenses, office overheads. Then comes repairs and plant is factory. Salesman is selling and distribution. So we are not going to record that now. Then general manager's salary, again it is office overheads. Then audit fees, office overheads. The remaining items are your selling and distribution overhead. So all these items are written and the total of that is written. And now the cost, when we add that, what we get is the cost of production, 2,22,945. Now, if we have the opening and closing stock of finished goods, what we will do here, we will adjust that, add opening stock of finished goods less closing stock of finished goods. Now, in this case, it's not there. Now, what we are going to add now, we are going to add selling and distribution overheads. So again, we come back to the question. We look into all the items here. Now, you can see here, print carriage outwards, that is the expenses incurred in taking these goods out of our factory, carriage outward, which is a part of selling and distribution overheads. Then comes the salesman expenses. You can see here salesman expenses. Advertising, that is another item. Then comes the next one, that is agents commission. 5,750, warehouse rent 1,800, and traveling expenses 1,400. These items. So these items are written here, and the total of that 14,390. So when you add these to the cost of production, we get the total cost. So total cost is arrived at by adding the selling and distribution overheads to the cost of production. So once again, we can see the cost sheet now. So the cost sheet information, we have prepared a cost sheet from the information which was given here. So we began with the materials, then wages, we found out the prime cost, then we have added the factory overheads, then added the office overheads, we got the cost of production. Afterwards, we have added the selling and distribution overheads, and finally we have arrived at the total cost. Students, if you have any doubts regarding this, please do ask me. Thank you.